G'day, my name is Jake Campbell and the major I've chosen is arts as I want to go into exercise science. I have chosen to publish my research in an academic journal as my research is a lot about science. The Journal of Clinical and Experimental Neuropsychology is a peer-reviewed scientific journal covering research in clinical and experimental neuropsychology. Neuropsychology is the study of the structure and function of the brain as they relate to specific psychological processes and behaviors. It also goes into the study of the relationships between behavior, emotion, and cognition. It was established in 1979, and they have many journals and articles about sports-related concussions. The three main rhetorical conventions I used were syntax, diction, and structure. Syntax refers to the grammatical structure of sentences and the format in which words and phrases are arranged to create sentences. So because my research being a lot of scientific words, I had to be sure in what order to put that in to make sure that the sentence makes sense. Diction can be defined as a style of speaking or writing determined by the choice of words used by a speaker. So there were lots of scientific words that I had to use like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, neuroscience, and neurometabolic, which are a group of diseases which can lead to seizures. Structure refers to the order of ideas. The progression of the writing should feel smooth with similar points linked together. So you want to make sure that your writing makes sense. I'll try to follow the main structure of an academic journal, which has your typical abstract, introduction, discussion, and conclusions. So I'll try to follow those points, and the discussion had the main bulk of my ideas and research, so I try to put it all together. And the conclusion was just piecing it all together and making a judgment based on my research. With my annotated bibliography, I chose most of my peer-reviewed academical articles that have been linked with CTE with mental diseases. Memory, language deficits, as well as sensory disturbances, behavioral changes can be effects of multiple concussions. Ty Pozzebon was a professional bull rider who suffered at least 12 severe concussions. Unfortunately, he later committed suicide, and it is believed that CTE was the cause of his suicide. Most of his concussions was where he was thrown off a bull and soon after stomped on his head by that bull. His friends and family had said that leading up to his death, he was super stressed out and would complain over minor things. His dad later said that after his last concussion, where a bull stomped on his head, that he was never the same. Another thing I found very interesting was how athletes, mostly the younger athletes where they don't have professional doctors and team medics, are returning to play too quickly after sustaining a concussion. This will increase their chances of further damage to their brain. You have to think, younger athletes their brain is still developing, and it can be a very serious issue later in their sporting careers if they continue to sustain concussions. So for my research question, it was, what effects do concussions in sport have on mental diseases such as dementia, Alzheimer's, and suicide? My thesis was, since chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is shorter for CTE, is a brain condition associated with repeated blows to the head and has been linked to problems with thinking and memory, personality changes, and behavioral changes. So I was wondering if concussions have a link towards mental diseases such as dementia, suicide, and Alzheimer's. As you can see in the graph down below, concussions are most prominent from ages in athletes from 15 to 17 years of age. The second highest number on that is 10 to 14 years of age. So as I stated previously, younger athletes' brains are still developing, and it can be very severe if concussions keep happening to these younger athletes. I'm sure most of you know what a concussion is, but I'll go into detail a little more. A concussion is a type of traumatic brain injury caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to the head, or by a hit to the body that causes the head and brain to move rapidly back and forth. This sudden movement can cause the brain to bounce around or twist in the skull, creating chemical changes in the brain and sometimes stretching and damaging brain cells. There are many symptoms of concussion, which are migraines, headaches. The person may black out, fatigue, or have poor balance. They might suffer amnesia, disorientation, or mental confusion. And these symptoms may not appear right away. They could appear weeks after the concussion has happened. CTE, which previously stated stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a brain condition associated with repeated blows to the head. It is also associated with the development of dementia. It is most common in athletes and military veterans, and potential signs of CTE are problems with thinking and memory, personality changes, and behavioral changes, including aggression and depression. Symptoms of CTE occurs in 4 stages and generally appear 8 to 10 years after an athlete experiences repetitive mild traumatic brain injuries. Unfortunately, you can only establish if an athlete has CTE after the athlete or person is deceased. Now I'm going to go over the similarities between the Australian Football League and the National Football League. Australian rules football is the most popular sport in Australia, and both are full contact aggressive games played on grass. Many of the skills are physically involved, such as catching, tackling, bumping and running. However, AFL has no protective gear, other than a mouthguard which is optional, but a lot of people still don't wear them. Kicking or handballing is the only way of moving the ball downfield in the AFL, and the AFL is way more fast-paced. The NFL has a lot of stops and starts, and it takes a lot for the play to develop. Down below there's a little diagram here of the injuries per sport. So as you can see, the AFL has more injuries than NFL. However, the severity of the injuries in the NFL are higher as they miss more games. Thank you for listening, and remember, your brain is the most fragile part of your body, but continue to have fun and play the sports you love, just with more precaution. Thank you.